privilege to extend you all a hearty welcome to this Sunday webinar. Friends, today it's an opportunity for us to name this webinar as an international webinar because two eminent professors of international report are with us. Friends, today we have invited two eminent professors of our globe to talk on humanity, which has been a global issue for all of us in the present time. In the first session, we have invited Professor Hamidulla Marazi, the President Dean, School of Sciences, Central University of Kashmir, India. Today, he will speak on the theme humanity. In the second session, we have invited the eminent social activist and orator of international report, Dr. Leila Chamanka. She is the professor, Department of Philosophy, University of Dayton, Ohio, University, United States of America. Today, she will speak on humanity and the social activities. Friends, the presence of such two eminent scholars and thinkers of the globe has glorified this program. But before inviting them, it's my pride privilege to speak on their academic journey. At first, I would like to speak a few words on the first speaker, Professor Hamidulla Marazi. Professor Marazi is now working as a professor and head Department of Religious Studies. Professor Marazi has taught at JNU, Kashmir University and Central University of Kashmir for the last 30 years. His specialization includes comparative religion, Islam, Muslim philosophy, contemporary challenges to Islam and interfaith dialogue, Islamization of philosophy, epistemology, and religious discipline, and many more things that I do not want to explore all the things because of the paucity of time. Friends, Professor Hamidulla has visited more than 100 universities and academic institutions across the country and abroad to speak on such issues. He is the academic convener of many philosophical forums and World Philosophy of Religious Councils in different countries of the globe. Because of the paucity of time, it is not possible for me to reflect upon all his associations. To his credit, Professor Hamidulla has written 40 books on Islamic philosophy, and his specialization and on his specialization that I have already reflected upon. Today, Professor Hamidulla will speak on the topic humanity. Today, we have with us Professor Leila Chamanka. She is a dual PhD in Islamic studies on the topic Shia intellectual study, and she has also done PhD in political science in the title Iranian study. Her first book is already published, the conceptualization of guardianship in the Iranian intellectual history, and she has also many publications. So today, both the speakers are internationally reputed. They have a more number of publication for the noble cause of philosophical reflection, religious reflection, and all kinds of serious thinking, and which can solve the present crisis of the globe. So with this, I welcome both the speakers. Today, I also welcome Professor Srinivasan, who is with us. Today, his presence has also glorified us. I welcome our admin and host, Professor Pramod Kumar Das. I also welcome our co-admin and moderator, Dr. K. Omnar Rao, to this webinar. With this, I once again I welcome all the scholars, students, and teachers of philosophy and other religious studies to this webinar. With this, I now would like to call upon Professor Hamidullah to speak on his topic on humanity. Over to Professor Hamidullah.
Am I audible?
Over to Professor Hamidullah.
Am I audible?
Yes, audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for your kind words and very good introduction you have given about me. Basically, I am a student of philosophy and world religions, and I have been doing comparative study of religions and philosophy for whole of my life. Today, a very interesting topic has been assigned to me that is pertaining to humanity. People have different definitions of humanity. It is a topic which has been discussed widely in philosophy, in religion, in poetry, in mysticism, and in almost all genres of literature. But I will be trying to give a very comprehensive definition of the subject. First of all, I am very thankful to Professor Srinavasanji, Professor Dayaji, and all other members belonging to philosophy family. It's a very good term that we are people belonging to a family and philosophy is our mother. Although philosophy used to be mother of all sciences, now it has ceased to be mother of all sciences, but at least it can be a meeting ground for us in modern times when we need a platform where we can discuss very important issues pertaining to subjects like humanity and peace and secularism and religion and non-violence and such other terms. To start with, Webster's dictionary defines from the French root human and from Latin humans. Homo humans means man akin to humus, the ground, and in Old English it was known as guma. A man and hum means kind, benevolent, tender, merciful, tending to civilize or refine, and humanism is defined as any system or mode of thought or action in which human and secular interests are predominant. The study of humanities is also included in this genre. Humanitarianism, the renewed interest in the literature and ideas of the Renaissance. Humanists, which often de-emphasize religion. That has also become very important when we talk about humanity or humans or humanism. Another definition which has been given to this term human is the adjective relating to or characteristic of humankind and better qualities of humankind such as sensitivity. And when we talk about anthropology, that is the study of humankind. And when we talk about anthropomorphism, that is to attribute human characteristics to something, even to God. Its origin is Latin humanus, from homo, man, human being. I believe that when we are just discussing such issues, we need to define our terms first. As has been said by Voltaire, if you want to discuss with me, define your terms. And I also am of the same opinion as we have been told by Wittgenstein. When language goes on holiday, all the problems arise. And linguistic analysis of this term is very important. And this can help us in many ways understand various dimensions of the subject. So now coming to other dimensions of this subject, for example, Reader's Digest dictionary says about human, that human is the adjective relating to or characteristics of humankind, and it is indicating about the qualities of humankind, better qualities, such as sensitivity And in anthropology, we are discussing also these subjects. Humanism is, it is noun and means a system of thought which attaches prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. And it also connotes a renaissance cultural movement which turned away from medieval scholasticism and revived interest in ancient Greek and Roman thought. The term is closely related to its humanitarian objective, which is concerned with or seeking to promote human welfare. Humanity means humankind, the condition of being human, compassion or benevolence. And humanities means learning or literature concerned with human culture. This is very important definition which has been given by different scholars and the people who are dealing with the lexicographical studies. In this way, we can say humanism is a philosophical and cultural movement of the 15th century European Renaissance. Humanists were originally scholars who studied and taught humanities like grammar, rhetoric, history, poetry, and moral philosophy, using classical Latin, Greek, and Hebrew texts. They based their educational system and cultural outlook on classical antiquity. Among them was the famous political theorist Nicola Machiavelli, who in his book Prince has given a totally different perspective about politics. And he has talked about non-religious and non-divine connotations of politics. Before that, it was, whether it was philosophy, whether it was poetry, whether it was politics, everything was talked in terms of religion and divine, entities. But Machiavelli and his other friends and his likes, they have defined all these terms in a very secular and worldly manner. Humanists rejected abstract reasoning and narrow-minded religious, connotations, and especially the narrow-minded approaches to religion in favor of basic human values, believing in well-being in this life rather than in the next. The invention of printing helped to separate the moments and make them amenable to different people of the world. And this whole philosophy had emerged in Italy, and now it was disseminated in the wider part of Western Europe. Humanism and its spirit of skeptical inquiry prepared the way for the Reformation, and some as texts came to fore to also talk about counter-reformation. So this was something about the etymology of the term humanism and humanity. I'll be trying to juxtapose this subject across the cultures, civilizations, religions, and languages as well. For example, when we talk about this term in Arabic, it is insaniyat, which means the characteristics of a man, and usually it is used in the sense of noble qualities of man, like bravery, good morals, and robust planning. And then we have a very interesting subject, that is Vedanta and Wahdatul Wujud, Insani Kamil, Anal Haq. And then the Persian poets, they have also talked about humanities. And Indian poets, starting from different Bhartari Hari and Kalidas. And then Persian poets, we have Sadi, we have Rumi, and then we have Iqbal. And then I will also talk about Indian context of humanism, especially how Vedas have talked about it. To talk about Vedas, for example, in Vedas we find that all Jivas have been considered that they were from very beginning in this world, and their actions and this great effect the universe is also without beginning. So Jiva, if we see from the point of view of Jainism, so they have talked about Jiva, and then in Buddhism also we have the same notion. And especially in Vedas, much has been said about God. God is the subject matter of all the Vedas. Its purport is that God is the subject dealt with by the Vedas. Hence, the ultimate topic of the Vedas is God alone. It has been said, ye men, let the end of your deliberations mantra be true knowledge and the good of all beings, and may they be harmonious, free from dissensions, and characterized by the impartiality and fairness. This is in the introduction to the commentary on the Vedas, as has been presented by Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati. And we'll find such type of aspects of Vedic view about man and God together. Vedanta is the central teaching of Advaita philosophy as taught by Shankara, that was absolute reality is one, though it appears many. The famous Upanishadic statements that or thou and their plurality does not exist or interpreted as signifying the non-devil nature of the ultimate reality. Shankara wrote commentaries on the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Bhagavad Gita, the three main canonical works for all schools of Vedanta. The non-devil interpretation of Shankara did not give adequate importance to the theistic elements in Hindu scripture, because even in Vedanta, we find that man has been given such a status that man and God are one. And there is no difference between the two. It is Advaita Vedanta, and there is no divinity. So such was the states of man, that man was considered to be equivalent to God, or God was considered to be equivalent to man, although there have been other definitions of this. But what I want to say, this concept of man as divine being had been there from very beginning. And in Indian context, we find that the desire to vindicate the theistic elements in Hindu thought, this led to the revival of theism by Ramanuja, who endeavored to present a systematic account of Hindu theism, and the school of Vishishta Advaita took place. So my point here is that this concept of man was at the center of Indian philosophy as well, as also in the Wahdatul Wujud. When we talk about Wahdatul Wujud, that it seems that there have been descents from God to man, and God has taken different forms, and there have been at least 6 descents from above to below. That is, one was contemplative stage, that was cognitive stage, and second was the imagery stage at the level of the ideas, and then there was the spiritual stage, then finally it was the physical stage, and that is known as Tayunati Sitta and Tanazulati Sitta as well. So it means that people try to bring God back to man, and man was divinized. Such was the value of man in the context of Wahdatul Wujud, which is very close to the philosophy of Vedanta in many ways, although there are differences as well. As has been said in Wahdatul Wujud itself, Garfar ki maratib na kuni zindagi. Professor Leila will understand this better because she is well versed with Persian. And if you don't make difference between the creations or the levels of creations or the gradations of creations, then you are becoming an atheist. So there had been difference in this Wahdatul Wujud and its interpretations, but it seems very close, akin to the concept that man is at the center of the universe, and even God had to descend on man and take shape of a type of Avtara, or in the words of Mansoor, you could say Anarhaq, which has been interpreted by people like Iqbal, that he said, I am the creative truth, when he claimed that he is divine being or he is truth. So this is a very interesting aspect of Oriental philosophy. And I am just trying to juxtapose this whole thought with the Western philosophy. What West has done, and when we talk about humanism, we are talking in the terms as this philosophy has emerged for the first time in the West. And I want to say no, there has been a great discussion on this subject from very beginning. Be it Islam, be it Hinduism, be it Zoroastrianism, be it Buddhism, and Sikhism, and then we have Bhakti Movement, where man was given very much importance and he was demonized sometimes. And God was just, as has been said by Mahadeva, as he has been dragged down to man's level, and it could be considered therefore as a reaction against the different views of the people. And Mahadeva had emphatically affirmed that the individual is dependent on God, that is Paratantra, whereas God is independent, Savatantra of the souls, and hence they cannot be identical or with or merged into him. So he had to react against this type of philosophy where man was demonized to the extent where he could take the form of God. So this was very much apparent in our thought, in our philosophies. Then when we talk about, for example, Dharma is also very much rooted not only in metaphysical aspects, but also in the ethico-religious dimensions as well. In the metaphysical sense, it means the essential nature of a thing. For example, the dharma of fire is to burn. The two other meanings are ethical. Dharma means those duties and obligations which follow from one's station in society. Varna Ashram Dharma. Dharma also means those actions and duties which are intrinsic to the moral nature of man. The moral idea discussed in Rig Veda, standing for a cosmic order, includes also moral order. It is an intelligent principle that regulates the cosmos as well as the individuals. So the individual level and the level of man has never been ignored in any aspect of religion, dharma. And if we talk about Dhamma of Buddhism, there man's suffering is at the central stage. So to redeem man from suffering is the basic concern of Buddha and Buddhist philosophy, so that man can get nirvana and he is salvaged from the cycle of birth and death. And I am not going into details, just what I wanted to mention, that in a comparative study, when we make study of any subject like humanity, we have to see it not only from one perspective that may be in most cases in modern times Western, but we need to see it in various perspectives to have an actual understanding, comprehension of the subject, which is very important in modern times. As has been said in Rig Veda itself, let noble thoughts come from all sides. And Rig Veda lists bad intention, swearing, falsehood, gambling, death, egoistic enjoyment, cruelty, adultery, and theft as vicious and sinful acts. Whereas the Rig Veda also talks about and commands about honesty, rectitude, truthfulness, fellow feeling, charity, non-violence, celibacy, and faith as important virtues. So what I want to convey is that we have defined humanity by these values, the sensitivity, courage, bravery, and other things. So this has been discussed also in the religious scriptures, not only in philosophy, and these all values pertain to humanity as an ethical concept, not only as a metaphysical concept. So in this way, we can say humanity has metaphysical context as well as moral context, aesthetic context, literary context, and then scientific context as well. And then I will be trying to tell you something about Western context, how they have defined humanity. And they have not demonized humans. They have demonized humans. I am sorry to say this. And they just wanted to show the origin of humans from the apes and from animals. And at least Marx could do a justice. He said that man used to earlier to produce new organs, but now after losing his tail, he is now he is making the tools, man the tool maker. So you can see how much differences between two attitudes towards humanity or humans in both civilizations, Western and Oriental civilizations. I don't oppose any civilization. All the civilizations have given a great, knowledge, insights to humans. But when we are comparing, because of the Renaissance, when it has been said that God has been replaced by man, and man is at the central stage of the universe. And I have already given a little bit background of that. What was the meaning of secularism? It was triumph of reason over faith. Now there is no need of any religion. There is no need of any God. There is no need of any revelation. And religion, according to Hobbes, was the dream of a sick man. And Dostoevsky would say, if God is removed from the universe, everything will be permissible for an individual. And then Voltaire would say, Nietzsche would say, I have killed all the gods so that man may live in freedom. In his book, Thus Spake Zarathustra, and in the same way, in his book, Beyond Good and Evil, he has talked in the similar, terms, and we find that even Sartre, John Paul Sartre, in his book, Humanism, Existentialism is Humanism, he talks that I don't know whether God exists or not, but I know man exists. Then he surges up, then he defines himself. And at least they have established humans against God. They have tried to show that God and man are just opposite to each other. If we want that man should live in peace and freedom, then we have not to have any notion of God. And they try to get rid of every notion of religion, every notion of revelation, every notion of divinity, so that they could make way for, secular and atheistic and materialistic and agnostic and such other type of utilitarian and hedonistic, philosophies, and which emerged in the West. And then what happened. And they were trying to see the origin of man in state of nature. You may talk about Leviathan of Hobbes. Here he talks that in the state of nature, there was war of all against all. The war and the conflict and the antithesis and clash of civilizations, survival of the fittest, and the struggle between haves and have-nots, these have been the philosophies which have emerged from the West and which have shown that man is not having any divine origin. He has no divinity in him. And then, as has been mentioned by, Freud himself in one of his articles, Sigmund Freud, previously it was believed that man is the best creation. We have shown he is not the best creation. He has evolved from the apes and animals. And then he mentions about Marx. Marx said that man, everything in this world is because of matter. And there is unity of opposites. There is negation of negation. And then from quantity to qualitative change. And then in the delicts of nature, we find what Engels says. So they have just tried to show that man has been not from the noble origin. He has been not divine. He has been not good. He has been worse than the animals. And these are the two paradigms when we look towards humans. In one, paradigm, man has been divinized. He has been extolled and he has been called as the incarnation of God or the image of God or, as the descent from God or the determination from God. I am talking about Vedanta. I am talking about Wahdatul Wujud, unity of being, and I am talking about Anal-Haq of Mansur and other such type of mystics and Indian sages. But in another paradigm, we find that man's origin has been shown as the debased one, a worst of the worst. And that has given a new impetus about humanity. And we know what type of humanity we have seen in this world in modern times. What type of values, human values have been perpetuated. There has been war of all against all. There had been conflict. There had been clash of civilization. And such theories emerged. And survival of the fittest, as a big fish is eating small fish. And big powers, they are just doing. They are plundering small countries. They are trying to destroy their enemies by all type of weaponry at their command. And this was under the impact of this philosophy of humans. When you considered humans not from a very noble origin, such type of thought had emerged, and that has emerged. As this world is a jungle and forest, and there is war going on, and jungle books were written. And we were searching for our origin in the jungles and the forests. How the animals behave, now the sociology was patterned on that. And we have to also behave like that. And we were called, man is a rational animal. Man is a social animal. I don't despise animals. Animals are very good. But I say that let animals be animals and man be man. Let us give animals their rights, but humans their human rights. Let us not, confound, or let us not confuse, let us not, mix these two categories of creations. These are creations of God. They have their own rights. And the regime of human rights, which emerged not in the West, it emerged in the East. I tell you, as from Islamic point of view, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, because lot of demonization, lot of stereotyping, propaganda, and such, malicious campaign has been launched against Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu against Islam. And all the good values of Islam have been tarnished, maligned. And it has been said that there is no human rights in Islam. There is no woman rights in Islam, though there is no animal rights in Islam. And with the passage of time, they have just said that we have developed human, rights. And then humanitarian law emerged also. I have talked about that, all these subjects elsewhere. Here I am not going into deep, but just what I want to say, the human rights were established by religion. Whether it was Hinduism, it was Islam, it was Buddhism, it was Christianity. Christianity as a religion has given a great impetus to humanity and the human service and philanthropic activities worldwide. And their role in education has been very, very great, very, very commendable. Although Christianity did not emerge in the West, it emerged in the East. And here I am reminded about a great statement of a very visionary scholar of Turkey, Bediüzzaman Nursi. He says almost all the philosophies have emerged in the West, and almost all the religions have emerged in the East. Here we find in the East there is dialogue, there is samvad, but in philosophy, we are students of philosophy, all of us, and we know philosophy starts with, wonder and question and challenging the status quo. There is thesis, there is antithesis, and there is synthesis. You can't start with, you have to start with doubt. Cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I exist. Although the doubt of Descartes, it was methodological in nature. It was not existential like Ghazali's method of doubt. But doubt has been considered one of the important elements of Western philosophy. And without doubt, we can't have any philosophy there. As Eric Fromm has said, that the philosophy which has been propounded by their predecessor, that has been started from one pick by another successor. And from there, after demolishing the earlier philosophy, the new philosopher, successor philosopher has come. He has not accepted most of the views of the, predecessor. he had to demolish the earlier philosophy and come out with a new philosophy. But so far as in the East is concerned, here we find dialogue. We find that there is exchange of ideas. There is combination of your various views and enhancing one's understanding after getting involved in lot of exchanges of ideas here and there, and then getting culturally involved in the whole process of philosophizing, understanding of the views of others. And that has been carried by the Sufis to a great extent, and the philosophers. And this had been a great trait of the Asian philosophers, Oriental philosophers. I am not trying to show, oppose Western philosophers against Eastern philosophers, Oriental philosophers against, philosophers belonging to other, communities. But just what I want to say, when we talk about humanity, humanity is such a subject which has been discussed in diverse ways by different people. And they have brought such, diverse definitions of humanism, humanity, where hardly these meet at any place. And it seems that there are as many as definitions of humanity as there are humans. This can't be true. We need to reach to some, definition of humanity which is common, and that we find in various philosophies of the East. As I have been talking already, as I have about Vedanta, about Vatul Wujud, about Anal-Haq and such type of philosophies, and in form of the Bhakti Movement, in form of the Sikhism, and then Rishiism, and very important movement which has emerged in Kashmir and other parts, and that has tried to imbibe the good values of humanity from various sources. Let noble thoughts come from all sides. And this was the philosophy of Rigved, and that was the saying of the Prophet Muhammad also, Kalimatul hikmah da'alatul mu'min, faisu wajduha fawahaku biha. The word of wisdom is the last property of the believers. Wherever they get it, they should pick it up. And you can see in form of Sikhism. In Sikhism and the Granth Sahib, there is the Bani of Muslims and Hindus and other gurus. And then they have combined various aspects of different religions into one form of the thought, where everything seems to be human. Now, after discussing these aspects, let me tell you something about religions. So, for example, let us talk about how religion sees human nature. Philosophers have tried to see human nature in a different way. And how religion sees human nature or humanity. It has been said by one scholar whose name was Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi. He was a political thinker of Islam, a good writer, although very much controversial. So he has said that if we say what is the one theme which is running through all the copious verses of Quran, that can be man. In the whole, teachings of Islam or Quran, man is at the central place. Everything concerning man has been discussed as a prophet, as a sage, as a seer, as a mystical personality, spiritual personality, and as a woman. Mary has been discussed as the ideal woman for the world woman, and then Joseph has been mentioned as the king, and Solomon and David, and then Adam, then Hawa, that is Eve, and then David, and then other prophets have been mentioned. A woman and men have been mentioned. And there are chapters, for example, Al-Insan. The name of the chapter is Al-Insan, that is human. And you will find the copious, verses of Quran full with these words. And if you go to Veda, there you also find that man is at the central stage. Humanity is at the central stage. And everything revolves around man. Even God revolves around man. That's very interesting. Even God revolves around man. And God is trying to get different type of shapes in form of humans. So this is, and then if you go to Sikhism, Teri gat pit tu hi jane. And kirat karo vansh khot, kirat karo Naam Japo One Chako. So this also revolves around human Sangat and Pangat. That also talks about the community kitchen and how humans have to live together. Then Buddhism, the four noble truths, and the eightfold path, Ashtang Marg, Madhyam Marg, and then Jainas, Ahimsa, Satya, and such type of views you can find. And everything has culminated into mystical thought. And we have mysticism of all these religions, and which has just basically this mysticism was that from religiosity, it has graduated to spirituality. If religion does not graduate from religiosity to spirituality, this becomes a great tragedy for the humans, to those people who themselves are the adherents of the religion, and for others who are not adhering to that religion. Religion has to graduate to spirituality, because in every human being, from the religious point of view, it has been said that there is some part of divinity. Some religions have divinized humans to the extent when man and between man and God there has been no difference. But there are religions who have made difference between God and man, but they have said that there is an element of God or spirituality or divinity in man. For example, Islam. In Quran it has been said, وَنَفَقْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. We have breathed something of our spirit into man. So in man there is something spiritual, divine, which has been breathed into him at the time of creation. And there are several things which are common in all those religions and all those philosophies, even in their stages when those were developed into philosophical systems, mystical systems, or different type of, esoteric systems. So my point is here that we need to see this concept of humanity from different angles, and that has been seen by our seers and sages like Vivekananda, like Iqbal, like Sadi, like Tagore, like Hafiz Shirazi, like Maulana Rumi, like Kalidas, and like Sheikh Nuruddin Wali of Kashmir, Sayyid Ali Hamadani, and so many other poets, scholars, and saints. And they have tried to see the common factor of humanity in all, where they have tried to present it in such a way which is acceptable to one and all. And people have been searching for the common roots of human, existence, and how God has been talking to humans in different ways at different places, and people have ascribed those books. And this was a very great element in our part of the world, that people wrote books on each other's religions. Al-Biruni, he came to India and he was in search of the Hindu scriptures, and he learned Sanskrit language, and then he wrote a very great book, Kitab al-Hind. And in this he has tried to highlight the yoga of Patanjali, and he talks about other aspects of Hinduism in such a beautiful way that he was considered by people as the Vidyasagar, the ocean of knowledge. Same yearning was in Guru Nanak Dev Ji, in Kabir, and in other, great people who belonged to this Bhakti movement. What was Bhakti movement? They wanted to just reach at the root of this human element in religion, rather than those elements where we have differences. They were trying to reach to the commonalities which can bind people together, rather than the differences where skirmishes and the schisms may just take place. So they have tried to come out with such human poetry, such type of human thought and philosophy, which has given a new color to our civilization and our culture, our values, our norms, our ethical philosophies. And the best example of that has had been Sikhism. How people have just tried to relate oneself to another. You know that Hamidulla Marazi, he used to accompany with Guru Nanak to each and every part of the places where he visited. And Mardana Marazi was a Muslim. And it is interesting that the Golden Temple's foundation stone was laid down by a Sufi, whose name was Sai Mia Mir Qadri. Such was the relationship between the people that was based on humanity, because they were searching for such elements where we can relate ourselves with others. And this is such an element in Oriental philosophy, which we need to highlight. And when we are just talking about humanism in the Western context, there we are just trying to just present man, opposite to God and God opposite to man. Here, we are trying to see in humans this divine element. And service of humans becomes the service of God and religion. And when you are serving some person, you think that I am serving God and his purpose and his creation. So this is a philosophy of humanism which has developed in this part of the world. And that has been the philosophy of humanism which has developed there. But if you go back to Aristotle, you will go back to Plato, you will go back to Socrates, Heraclitus, and Thales and others. You will find these elements which are found in Oriental philosophy of humanism intact there as well. But about 1,000 years, when there was conflict between religion and philosophy and science, there was reason for that, because church had galvanized all the aspects of life, and they were persecuting people on the name of inquisitions. And then there was conflict between religion and philosophy, religion and science. And whosoever wanted to uphold philosophy, he found himself, constrained, condemned to oppose religion. But in our part of the world, this situation was not there. But the problem is when we generalize and we say that there has been conflict between religion and philosophy everywhere in the world, and then we create problems and we become misfit in our own society. For that reason, our philosophy is not being accepted in the West, and their philosophy is not compatible to our values at many places. But there is need that we have to understand the background of their philosophy of humanism and our philosophy of humanism, our values of humanity and humanitarian law and human rights, and their viewpoint of humanitarian law. And nothing is universal in that way. This is relative. Their philosophy may be applicable there, but not applicable here in all aspects. And our philosophy may be applicable there, but not in. So we need to make a comparative study of that. And after comparative study, we need to see what are the elements which are common between both the paradigms of humanity and human rights and humanitarian law. To make those laws also compatible to ourselves, we need to have a dispassionate, steady dialogue, exchange of ideas, and let West and East also meet on those grounds. And the times which have come between, which have created a lot of confusions and differences, and I should say propaganda against each other, that needs to be removed by the philosophers. And the philosophers have a very, very important role at this time. So with these words, I can just conclude, because I have almost exhausted my time, and there may be some questions also. I think that basically now we need to have a very comprehensive study of philosophies of humanity. We don't need to just rely on one, paradigm of humanism or humanity or humanitarian law or human rights, because these are not universal. Approach is not universal about that. There is a lot of problem here and there in the very conception of humanity. And after making a dispassionate study of various paradigms of humanity, which have been presented by people here and there, and we have to also understand what is the metaphysical, background and foregrounding of different theories of humanity, and then see how we can make these compatible when there is a humanism based on atheism and there is a humanism based on theism. How we can make these two compatible to serve humanity, and that has to be there. mantra of all the philosophies and religions. And if religions, philosophies, and science is not able to serve humanity, then these are all enemies of human civilization. But if these serve humanity, then these all are useful tools in our hands to transform this world into a place worth living. So it has theoretical, philosophical, mystical, spiritual, scientific implications. I am very thankful to all of you for your rapt attention. And there may be many questions because I have tried to talk out of books, not a structured way, because we need to talk from heart now. Lot of, exercise and PPTs we have so far made and we have discussed, but we have never talked heart to heart and in a candid manner to understand things on our own terms rather than to get, influenced by the different type of stereotypes about this philosophy and that philosophy. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Professor Hamidulla sir, for presenting such a very excellent and reflective talk on humanity. Sir, today through your linguistic analysis, you have very beautifully reflected upon a very comprehensive analysis of the term humanity, and you have also tried to give the etymology of humanism and humanity as depicted in Vedanta, Indian poetics, Indian and Western philosophy, scriptures, religions, and in the world religion. Thanks so much for your comprehensive analysis and reflection. And you have also very beautifully analyzed that how all the noble thoughts, wisdom, human virtues, superhuman virtues, values, and all the roots of religions are synthesized in humanity. Thanks so much. Now it's time to interact with different audience. Now I would like to call upon our moderator, Dr. K. Omnar Rao.
No, sir. Actually, let us go with the talk at the end because it is on humanity.
Okay. Thanks. Now we have to move to the. Thanks so much, Dr.